Yeah, it is 12:02. This is the Planning and Zoning Committee. A few notes. We are recording audio and we are broadcasting via YouTube. With that, I'll turn it over to Chairman Hellman to get the meeting going.
Thank you, Matt. There are, I understand it now, we're still going to review all of these, and there's 4 different items that we'll cover on the agenda, correct?
That is correct.
We're still there. One is the rezoning of 119 McPherson to commercial. The other one is the alley vacation off of McPherson. There is the moratorium that you've asked for on small box retail. And then there is the language amendment to the zoning code.
That's correct.
All right. Well, starting at the top, it has to do with the C1 request for, what was that, 119 McPherson from R1 to C1.
R2 to C1.
Excuse me, R2 to C1. Okay, good. Are there any, and I think everybody here has read that from the council. I guess, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this issue on the rezoning?
Yes, thank you, Councilman, Mr. Chairman of this committee. I really, again, was hoping we would have gotten tabled from the Planning Commission. I think a lot of comments that were raised by members of the community were good ones, but we think we can address most of them. Going into the meeting, we had gotten very good feedback about this proposal until, I don't know, Matt, 10, 12 days ago. Would you say that, because we were calling about some emails that came in. And,
Sure. I would say letters started coming in probably the 2nd or 3rd of October.
Okay, so we were contemplating even tabling then because we believe with our team, we could address logically, thoughtfully, factually, some of the issues being raised. And then when we consulted with staff, since the meeting was scheduled, we thought, well, let's at least have the discussion, a transparent presentation. We're not hiding who we were, what we're doing, and we really were hoping to have a discussion, hear out all the issues about the drive-thru in particular, how it operates, how safe it is, and why this location in particular is a very successful location for Findlay. And frankly, the business model of McDonald's, people can say what they want and be as critical as they want. It's a local business. I've represented the company for 40 years on Lameness Manors. These operators put their heart and soul into the business, they take care of it, and it's really important. When they're part of the discussion with the company about location, they really think it through. So we'd at least like that opportunity. So however this committee makes a recommendation to the full body, we're asking just for time to address questions that were raised so that a decision isn't made on subjective and frankly, in some occasions, inaccurate information. It sounds persuasive at the moment, but we really think it would be in the interest of Findlay to be given that opportunity. So however this committee makes a referral to the full body, we just want that opportunity. And even, I think the meeting is next Tuesday, so we're going to need more time if the city of Findlay wants to have that discussion to make the right decision. We want to make it a win-win for McDonald's, for the operator, and for the community. So I really request that be given some consideration at least.
So just to make sure I understand, your request is that this body recommend to council that we table the
Yes.
zoning request?
Yes,
All right.
yes, correct. And that way, you can always say no later on, right? But I just think we should be given an opportunity to give our best foot forward.
I hear you. Just wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Those in favor? Those against?
Yes,
Good afternoon, Lee Whitehampton. I live on 204 Green Lawn in South Findlay, just a few blocks from this proposed development. I would oppose any zoning change to the property that creates a larger footprint for a larger facility to be built on that corner. It's a very busy corner. We had a very lengthy discussion about traffic patterns pedestrian and vehicle on South Main Street. The added traffic that would be hitting McPherson, I think, is being understated by McDonald's and their people. Additional curb cuts on the Cascades is just going to add more traffic complications to that intersection. So I would oppose any change to the zoning on that property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Wygant, 204 Green Lawn.
I'm sorry.
Kathy Wygant, 204 Green Lawn, neighbor. Sorry, 204 Green Lawn. Kathy.
Thank you. I'm old.
Yeah, I write you letters all
Difficult
the time.
hearing.
What this gentleman just mentioned, that he wants more time, but he also said it's a local business and he's worked in the community forever. Why would they not be prepared about the traffic study and know the traffic patterns in this town? They are pulling the wool over everyone's eyes here when they're saying that they can amend this and fix this and mold this corner where all this traffic they're going to be seeing. As I was telling Mr. Slar when I've been busier when he came in, consider the EMS, consider garbage trucks backing up in McPherson, blocking that left-hand turn onto Main Street, North Main Street. Consider, the picture here, you should show the site plan for the people who were not here at the last meeting. I know it's not a confirmed site plan, but it's just definitely a working plan that they're looking at. Let's see. Not very good at this, but we'll give it a try. Is that the one? Okay. You come in here, and you can go to the drive-through. Okay. Are they really going to come out here? No. They're going to drive through, empty here. Then where are they going to empty to? Maybe up in McPherson, go up the alley. Alley behind all the houses on Main Street. Oh, they're not going to go over here maybe. Who knows? Okay, and then they're going to have on McPherson, people coming through here. Same egress. There is no idea of how to get these people in and out. They're saying it's going to back up to 24 possible cars there. Can you imagine the balloon festival? Can you imagine soccer tournament time? Can you imagine Halloween parade time? This is not thought of at all. Thank you for considering all the work that the Planning Commission has done and what the mayor's recommendations are. We need to consider this as a no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Any discussion on the committee here?
I would say that we are only discussing the rezone of the residential property. I think I appreciate that McDonald's has been transparent and given us a full eye-opening of what your intentions are, but they have not gone through your committee yet to even go further on that. Matt, if we table the rezone for the residential, or if we deny it, and they then come to you with a full site plan, can that be readdressed again, or is it better for us to table it for that full entire discussion? It sounds like they're gonna come to you is what I'm saying, right? So we haven't really done a site plan review, correct? I mean, they're showing us.
Correct. Correct. We've not looked at the site plan and compared it to our code.
And traffic counts and all of that. I mean,
If this was a site plan, we request them to do a traffic study, which I think that's one of the things they want to do.
so do you think it's best for us to table the rezone and let it sit if they decide to take it further for discussion, just not to have extra paperwork, or?
No, I mean, if you table it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Don, because we tabled the alley vacation off of Blanchard. When it was tabled, you then requested them to come back with changes, or in that case, more signatures. So if you table it, they would come back to you. If you don't table it, if you approve it, it will then start its 3 readings at council, and then council will ultimately decide. If you deny it, then council merely accepts the report, and then it stops there, and no further readings are given. You know, so.
My thought is, I have the concerns for traffic counts and that situation. I understand the people on McPherson and wanting to have, maintain their buffer and so forth. So we're only addressing that piece of property. On one hand, I say we do nothing and table it and let the discussion go further. On the other hand, we deny it, they can still come back again and repetition it, correct? If they, with the full site plan.
So
So if we deny this rezone,
yeah, I think on the rezone, I believe they'd have to wait a year to request the rezone again, unless there's a substantial change in reasoning, I believe. But yeah, I mean, we're wading into site plan discussions. When, I mean, the true request is 119 McPherson. At the same time, I appreciate them, because usually we're looking at a rezoning and we're like, we've heard it's gonna be this, what's it gonna be, you know, and that's a difficult decision too. But, you know, if you deny the rezoning, you know, they still, I mean, they can come back with a site plan. Now, they will have less commercial space to work with. But, and then at the site plan, we'll have the discussions of traffic and those types of things, architecture, drive-through, all those types of
Ladies,
things.
what have you. Any other comments on the way here? Brian?
I suppose I would say, why delay the inevitable? As the councilman whose ward that 119 McPherson sits in, I would be opposed, and I would share the concerns of my constituents in the area. So I would be, I guess I would go ahead and make the motion to deny the rezone.
my comment would be that, I agree that he should represent his constituents, we should represent, the community's input, but we should also still allow the process to go through and let it work itself out through that, because they are also constituents in our community. So that's kind of where I feel like we either table it or let it go for its 3 readings, and be done. But if there's a process that we need to complete, we need to allow that to work its way out. So I would be more inclined to table it and see if they even take it any further for discussion, and if they don't, so be it. And if they do, we're allowing them their process.
Well, I guess what I would say is that they've already had their process, and the city planning commission has denied that rezone. So with that recommendation in mind, we have little other option but to do what is recommended by the planning commission, in my view.
The question, the concern I have is nothing against McDonald's or, hamburger restaurants or what have you. The concern I have, I guess, is the commercial creep into a residential district, and it begins to affect properties along the way, and we end up having a bigger and bigger site and bigger commercial establishment. That's been my concern all along. Mr.
Gentleman from McDonald's wants to
That's the question. I don't know if the planning director can put up an aerial at all.
Sure.
Of the site, in the area too. Like, can you put up something wider than that,
Yep.
farther to the west?
We'll go to Google Maps.
you looked at any others, I mean, we're off topic still, cause the rezone's one thing, but have you looked at
Yeah,
other locations?
I know they've looked in the area, but I don't have specifics on that. And we kind of want to still focus on this and we still like, being in the community certainly. So
Here's the site.
here's the site, and this parcel that we're asking to rezone is about 38.5 feet wide. If you go to the west, the house that's the subject of that was acquired by Dr. Bateson, right? Not Bateson. I have a friend named Bateson, but it was not in good repair to protect her investment. And so that's the reason why it's the zoning that's being suggested is consistent with the zoning on the site where the bank had been for a few years, and her medical office. So if we go west, you will see that I don't think it is all residential. I don't know. So that's on that side of the street. I don't think
AT&T is there.
that goes down, and there's a, that is not residential there. And that's to the west of the site. I think the next property I don't think is residential. And you've got storage in the back, that's not residential certainly. And then if you go just a few parcels over, you have a large substation, you have a vacant parcel and a large substation, then you get into Cooper Tire. So I guess I would look at it as, and I'm an advocate of zoning and I'm an advocate of master plans. And I don't think it's creep going into a direction where there clearly are other business uses on those properties to the west. And this is a 38.5 foot wide parcel. So whether it's McDonald's or whoever, to square that property off with a 15-foot wide alley that's never been maintained or used would seem to me to be a good planning decision because it's consistent with the C1. And McDonald's use, frankly, of all of that is predominantly for buffering and some parking. That's the primary use. There's not going to be a structure on it. There will be some enclosed trash containers to the back towards Cascades. But again, we did not get the negative feedback until 10 days ago. Most of the feedback we were getting was pretty positive. And for the questions that were raised, we don't want to just wing it now and say, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that on the floor. Now, sometimes you can do that with changing shrubs around or something, but we want to actually talk to a traffic engineer. I am not one. No one else in the audience, to my knowledge, is one. We haven't had a traffic engineer from the city say this is a really bad idea. We want to be able to do that, and then make the decision. But you can't do that in 4 days. So that's really what I'm asking and I'm urging that we really give it just that time. And if it doesn't work and McDonald's reaches that conclusion, then it's not going to proceed. But I think given the location and the responsibility of the operator and their knowledge of the community, we just want to give it our best shot. We don't want to have it turned down when we weren't really given an opportunity to answer specific questions, particularly about traffic. That's all I'm saying.
All right, thank you. Councilman Mullen?
So I guess what I would say to that point is the difference, let's say, with the folks down McPherson, okay, is that those folks get there probably 8 o'clock in the morning and leave 5 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
That's not around the clock traffic like you would have from a McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
And two, yes, there's a substation there, but there is a church before you get to Cooper Tire. And that is certainly as residential as you get. So apples and oranges, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, what are those properties zoned? So what is the AT&T building? Is that C1? What is that? And then the lot that's for sale and the church?
I believe this is zoned office. We'd have to look. I'd have to do some research. I don't know the zoning offhand. And one of the things we look at is, was it there? Zoning was adopted in 1956, so we do have some uses that were around before 1956. For example, a gas station has been on this corner in some form, my understanding, a smaller footprint since 1938. And then Kroger, which was Food Town, was developed sometime in the mid-50s. Not sure if it was before zoning or after zoning, but so I don't know what these are. I don't know the zoning of these.
AT&T's O1, and then it's R2 all the way down to Cooper.
O1 means what?
Offices and institutions.
Oh, I thought it was just a storage building. Okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Hi, Sharon Sills, Area Construction Manager for McDonald's. And, you know, I really want to set a few things, you know. Turn
Pull that, yeah, turn that mic down to your mouth.
And then make,
Turn-
it should
I'm a
be-
tall guy, I'm
turn
sorry,
that-
that's my fault.
I don't think the microphone's on. I know that's on. Yep.
Okay, can you hear me?
That's better.
Oh, great, thanks. So I just want to clarify a few things from McDonald's perspective. First of all, it's not going to be 24-hour operation. And in terms of due process, we've had basically a few days to come in here with showing you kind of what we thought. But weeks ago, we submitted a proposed site plan to the city and said, hey, you know, we'd like to get in and talk to you. Are we in the ballpark? You know, asking for feedback on that site plan that we never received a response from.
Ma'am, who did you speak to? 'Cause
We actually submitted it, I got the email. and-
okay, because first of all, I've enjoyed working with you all, so I'm not trying to be adversarial here, but a lot of times projects schedule a meeting with us. And, you know, and maybe it was because of email or something, but if you asked me a month ago, how do you think a McDonald's would be received at this corner? I would have nailed it and said, you're gonna have the neighbors are going to come out and, you know, so I wish we could have had, I wish, whether it was miscommunication or it wasn't requested or however it happened, I wish we could have had a meeting, because I think I would have pretty much, I would have been able to give you forewarning on what was going to happen. So.
Well, I appreciate that, but I guess it really goes to the point where it says, you know, how we have our due diligence, how we been able, like we do with all other projects, come in and start working with the city planners to see if this is the right fit, if the site plan is right, if, you know, and then today we heard about the conditional use of the drive-through, and it just, you know, I'm just gonna be perfectly honest, it kind of felt like decisions were made and we don't even feel like we got out of the gate in terms of presenting McDonald's side of the house, especially with owner-operators who will technically, while they don't own the site, that is their business, and they have a huge investment. We're talking millions of dollars that they're gonna be investing in that site. So I just wanna make sure that we're all on the same page here, in all fairness, to give the due diligence to owner-operators who are part of this community that would like to expand, you know, their businesses, you know, in the city of Findlay that they're already committed to.
Well, I mean, the conditional use is in the code, that's not a surprise.
Right, no.
I just wanted to, maybe I misunderstood your comment, but the conditional use for a drive-through is clearly in the code.
Correct. No, so let me clarify. Thank you. You're 100% correct. But it was the fact that, you know, the comment came out that, you know, that they would not be in favor of a drive-through for McDonald's. That was the comment that
Okay.
I heard
Gotcha.
earlier. So thank you, sorry, I should have clarified that. So I'm just, you know, kind of feeling like, you know, decisions were made when we really even haven't even been through our process at all, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Slim?
Could you tell me the number of children that walk to and from school?
Turn your mic
Can you tell me the number of children that walk to and from school, that would cross in front of the building if McDonald's was permitted to build there? The number of students that go to Jefferson and Donnell, I would assume there's a significant number of children that would have to walk past the facility. Do you have any idea of numbers?
Eric Long, Tunnels owner operator here in Findlay. I've sat on that site for the last 5 days, from 6 in the morning until 9, and from 2 in the afternoon until 7. The number of children that crossed was 5 in front of our building where we would be located. In the morning, 3 walked, 2 on bicycles. There were also 3 pedestrians who crossed in that time in the morning. In the afternoon, when you talk about Jefferson, the real issue is the car traffic that you have at Jefferson, which is south of our site. Again, in that afternoon time period, 3 children. One actually was a van that pulled up and mom picked them up in the parking lot. So I don't know where you're going to get that kind of research. That's just my observations. So to me, there was not this huge mass of children that walk in front of that site on an everyday basis.
Why would I count on your observation? I don't know where you would get that information either, but you took the time and the wherewithal to do that, so I commend you
I was
on that.
concerned when I heard they said there was a ton of walk traffic because I wanted to be sure. Now, I will compliment the city. You have crosswalk signals at all 4 corners. And the children were able to cross safely because it's dark when they came through at 7, 10 in the morning. When those kids went to walk, but they went towards now. I did not see anyone go towards Jefferson. But again, those are just my observations. So, thank you.
I think Councilman Bowman had made a motion to deny the request. And that's where we stand at the moment. There is no second at this point. So I guess I'll make a motion to table this until we have gotten more information, I guess.
I would second that.
So it's been moved and seconded to table the C2 request. Any other comments from anybody? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign? Nay. 1 nay, 3 yeses to table. That's it. All right. We'll move on to item 2, which is the alley vacation at same address, 119 West McPherson Street, behind the property. It's about a 15-foot wide strip, and as you all know, half goes to one property owner, half goes to the other property owner. Both properties are owned by the same individual at this point, and if in fact this went through, would be transferred in total. So, any comments from up here regarding the request to vacate the alley?
The City Planning Commission made a recommendation to approve the
Approve, yeah.
vacation. Staff's comments essentially were all the adjacent property owners signed off on the alley vacation. And then secondary, we don't see anyone that would be negatively affected by closing the alley. So our recommendation is to approve the alley vacation.
Any other comments?
Yeah, Matt.
The committee here?
Remember you had a utility easement through there as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
a condition, they approved it with condition of creating a utility easement in the alley,
Creating one, or there already is one?
creating one. There could,
There's already utilities in there, I thought.
There's no city utilities, there is, electric.
So isn't that always gonna be an easement?
Most
no
likely,
matter-
yes.
Yeah, it doesn't change being an easement.
So
if we vacate it.
confirmation of utility easement or the creation of one.
Gotcha.
There may not be one because of the sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. The utility's like, well, I'm in a right of way, so, so we just need to make confirmation of that.
And if they're in there, we'll put a utility easement in the alleyway. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any comment from the committee here? Any comments from the audience? Those in favor, those opposed? All right. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
We'll second that. Any other discussion? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. 3-1. The utility easement is approved. I mean, the vacation.
Well, it's recommendation to approve the city council.
To city council, correct, sorry.
It'll have its-
I got a little loose with my language.
It'll have its 3 readings.
Thank you. And I'm gonna need some help on this moratorium. I don't understand why, the planning commission did what they did.
Sure.
But, so Matt, why don't you go ahead and, I mean, I know what they did, I just didn't quite understand the logic.
So the logic of splitting them? Well, I'll quickly do an explanation. So, I requested a moratorium to allow time to work through, the updates to the zoning code. Specifically, we didn't want potential users to kind of feel an urgency to get in, to move into the city, before we made it a little more restrictive for them. Of most urgency was the gaming skills businesses. They're very transient. We have 6 in the community. If you look for them on Google, you'll only find 2 because they move in and out so quickly. They're here 3 months and then they're gone. They're here for a year, they're gone, and others take their place. So, the simple basic fact of the moratorium is to allow planning commission, city council to work through the proposed zoning changes. At planning commission, their recommendation was to split the 2 items, a moratorium for gaming skills and then a moratorium for small box retail, allowing city council to have the option to pass one and not the other, or pass both, or pass none. Just essentially gives them a little more flexibility. Are there any questions about the moratorium?
So you're saying the planning commission voted to put a moratorium on
They recommended a moratorium,
both?
and they recommended that the 2 uses be split in half.
Okay.
Or to be divided into 2 separate ordinances. I think there's universal agreement that the gaming skills potentially, I'm speaking on behalf of what my interpretation of what they said, is that there's more urgency with the gaming skills, less urgency for small box retail, and so that they would like city council to have the flexibility to split it, yes.
And I understand that. But then didn't they put a moratorium on both?
No, they're simply making a recommendation.
Recommendation?
Like you will be doing.
Yeah.
City council wanted, planning commission and planning and zoning to make review these and make a recommendation. And then it'll be heard, next Tuesday.
Mhm.
At the next Tuesday meeting, pending the discussions that we have today, I'm going to request that the moratorium waive the remaining readings and pass on an emergency basis. And then the zoning amendment will travel through its normal 3 readings and then doesn't go into effect for 90 days.
But the moratorium is for both small box and.
Well, now it's 2 separate ordinances.
Yeah.
Well, it's not
on
two
each.
separate, it's one. We would have to split it at council. It's because it went through first reading as one, because I kind of had that discussion saying,
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's some legal finagling to do, but
Yeah.
I understood that, at the next meeting, I'll present 2 ordinances for a moratorium. And I'll request that they both be waived and passed, and then council can do their thing. Not pass them, pass one, not pass the other, wait the full readings, you know. A plethora of options.
I guess, Dennis, the moratorium, for me, so we have both pieces of legislation there, but the moratorium is rushing a process before we're through it, and I don't think the last time I remember a moratorium, and the mayor even said it, was when we talked about medical marijuana. And I think it still went through its 3 readings before we did anything with it to get public input. I don't see how this moratorium, it looks like big government, like Mr. Niemeyer said, that, you know, we have to maintain our position of where we belong and where we let the community make decisions on how things turn out, if people shop them or if they don't. I see the big concern with gains of skill because of the transient process, the transient situation and the police issues that we have out there and so forth, that I would say that that's more important to pass on a moratorium. But I have gotten phone calls of people with concerns of how we are spelling out small box, but we already have that legislation that's also had 1 reading. Do you plan on defining further, Matt, or no?
I'm going to look at it. You know, to me, the critical part of the definition is, I want to add a definition of thrift store, which is essentially the reselling of items versus selling new items.
So would that be the resale shops? I've had a
Yeah.
couple calls on it, people that buy pallets and then
Yeah.
that would be a thrift, or no?
I will take a look at that, but, you know, let's see, sorry, here's the definition. You know, one of the key points, and continuously offer a majority of their items in the inventory for sale at a price less than $10. So that doesn't meet a CVS, that doesn't meet, you know, many small businesses.
I know the mayor mentioned Rhubarb Studio in the planning commission. I mean, that's a small, I think some of their stuff is over $10, obviously, but they're less than 15,000 square feet too.
Yeah, to me, that does not meet the definition. So this is a definition that's been used by other communities. We can take a little more critical, you know, I like defining thrift store so that we clarify that, but you know, it's not a moratorium on every small store.
Well, in fact, it's a moratorium for 6 months, right? I mean, we're not ruling anybody out or in or anything like that. We're just, well, stopping it for 6 months until we figure out what the definitions are, what you want to do. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
If you were a business though, would you?
What's that?
If you were a business potentially coming in and being told you're on hold until we define whether we're gonna let you in or not let you in, or if you would live in a neighborhood and you like having a dollar store or a small box store that keeps you from having to go to the larger retail and get in your car and travel. I've had those phone calls come in actually just this morning saying that some people like having those conveniences closer to their home. So we're making those changes before we're getting input. Do you think it's detrimental to our community to pass the moratorium on small box while we while we define it. I see the benefit of games of skill. I don't see the benefit. I see that we're overstepping our bounds
So
on that.
just to clarify, the proposed ordinance, the proposed changes and the moratorium will not affect the $8 stores that we have. And those can continue to operate for the next 100 years, as long as they don't stop functioning for a period of 2 years.
But it also stops on 10,000 square feet.
Let's let
What's that?
Councilman Baumann speak.
So, but I guess wouldn't we have heard from a prospective business if they were interested already, if they were interested in putting in one of these types of operations by now?
Yeah, I mean,
Because they would have already had to have gone through the process that McDonald's is going through, correct? I mean, we would have already had heard about it.
yeah, so the quickest path is, let's say, the family video on Trenton Avenue. There's space in there, they could they could file for the permits tomorrow and move in. That because they're not expanding, because they're not building, and because it's not a conditional use, they could just move, they could file the permits and be in. But if you're building, that takes time. I'd say if someone submitted a site plan tomorrow for a dollar store, we'd have to check with the law director, but because they submitted the application and the moratorium goes into effect a week later, I think they're potentially in good shape because they've submitted the site plan.
You're talking about new construction there?
Yeah.
And then I guess my concern is, if not McDonald's, what goes in on that corner? They're on Main and 6th.
Sure. I mean, Eric took a phone call from a game of skill going into a building that I think a lot of people would be shocked that they'd be moving into. So, I agree with there's more urgency on the games of skill, but I still, to those people, we do have $8 stores, which is it's a decent amount. So we do have 8, and those 8 will not be affected, and I assume that those 8 will probably function for quite a long time until they go out of fashion or they're not doing well.
And we're not doing anything to harm current dollar stores and Dollar Trees and
No,
what
they're
have
fully
you.
protected to operate and maintain their services.
Ally?
You made a statement a minute ago talking about new construction, but clarify for me, this definition is whether they're building or going into a video store and taking over a space in a mini strip or whatever. It would not allow for that under the moratorium or under the new definition, correct? Or this is only new construction?
No. So
Yeah.
whether it's new construction or they move into existing does not matter.
Yeah.
So what the moratorium is allowing us is it's really allowing us, that month and a half while the legislation is going through, it's essentially,
Just stop it.
it's just stopping it.
Yeah, and that's kind of harsh. And then you just kind of said we have 8
Yes,
right now, and we're talking 1 per every 10,000 people, right, or
Correct.
something?
yes.
Well, obviously, from your statement, these 8 stores are utilized and they're staying in business, so they must have enough customer usage. So the economy is keeping them in business, the community is, so there must be a need for it. Now, I don't think we need one next door and on every block, but I don't think a business coming in would look at that themselves. And you did say you had businesses that have, for small box, that have called in recently. Were they for dollar stores or were they just generic with no details?
Just skill game places, small box stores. Have looked at other sites that are similar to the one on the corner there.
But we haven't had any, we've had something, we've
Just
had
discussion
recent
and-
inquiries
no.
or we haven't.
Past 3 months.
We have had recent inquiries for dollar stores. And just to be clear, you know, this isn't affecting every business smaller than 15,000 square feet.
Correct.
They have to meet the whole definition, so.
Brian, you had a comment?
Have we not had, so you mentioned the game of skill places, have we not also had a Dollar General or something to that effect ask about that Lake Cascades Main Street corner as well?
We've had both inquire about that site.
See, that's my problem, I guess, with it.
So, real quick, why don't we discuss what the proposed changes are? We've kind of discussed the moratorium, let's just quickly go over
This is the language changes?
the language
you know?
changes. So, currently, dollar stores are permitted in C1, C2, C3. I'm proposing that they are a conditional use in the C2 district.
And C2, give us an example, like,
Tiffin Avenue, Trenton Avenue, your more busy commercial areas.
that's 2.
I'd say half of ours are currently in C2, the other half are probably in C1. So I like having some limit. You know, I like the C2. The C2 is generally a little bit separated from the residential. You know, the people that like to live very close to one, that would affect them. It would probably be, the dollar stores in the future would be a little further away. To me, that's the most important change. The one that I'm very adamant, like we need to do this. I'm less adamant about the one for every 10,000. Honestly, that could be years and years, or no, that could affect anything pretty soon. To me, that's less important than having it just in C2. But other communities have done the 1 to 10,000. We could make it 1 for every 8,000. You know, if you're looking at maybe 6 is the right number, or we could drop that. To me, the most important change that I will stand on a desk and argue about is I feel like the C2 is the appropriate place for the dollar stores. And then we add the definition, and as discussed, I'm going to take a little further look. I want to add a thrift store option into it. But I don't have much concern. You know, if CVS wants to move in, they're not getting caught by this definition. Rhubarb is not getting prevented by this definition. And then the games of skill, they're currently also essentially permitted in C1, C2, C3. They could go into downtown, they could go into neighborhoods, they could go into Tiffin Avenue, and we have them. We don't have any downtown, but we have them in both circumstances. This, the proposal is to move it to I1, light industrial, in terms of, I think that's appropriate in that I look at it as more of a deterrent. And then we have 1 for every 10,000, which would limit it to 4 in the city, and shall not locate closer than 500 feet to a residential zone property. So in terms of restrictive, the games of skill is more restrictive. The small box retail is less restrictive. So those are the proposed changes. You know, I was, you know, when a game of skill moved into the 5th Third on North Main, that was a little shocking to myself.
That hurt you, man.
What's that?
I said, that hurt you.
Yeah, so, you know, we've just seen enough that it's like, I think it's time that the city address these uses. So those are the proposed changes that won't go into effect until we have the 3 readings and the 30 days. And the moratorium was designed to catch that period in between us having completed this ordinance.
On the small box, it was 1 in 10,000 people, and wasn't it like 1 mile or something as well?
Yeah, not within 1 mile of each other.
What was your, you were less, it was less important for you on the one for
I mean, it's
10,000?
a density issue.
So 1 mile is important to you,
Yeah, I think I would recommend that also.
is more important. And then putting that 1 in 10,000 in, that's affecting, so we have a population of what, 40,000, something
Yeah.
like that. So technically we put this into play and no small box definition of this can come into the city because we already have 8.
Yeah, five would
So
have
that
to.
it would basically not allow any more of those or anything that falls under that definition of
Yeah,
small box thrift.
five small box retail stores would have to essentially stop functioning, and then a fourth could be added.
Once those 4 go out, once those 5, you said 5 go out of
Yeah.
business, yeah, for 2 years.
Or they get turned into something else.
And another one couldn't go in its place. So if like Dollar Tree decided it was closing, Dollar General couldn't, they couldn't have a deal and come in on that spot, or they could.
They couldn't. So brand A is there, brand B buys it, and just they continue operating as normal, that would be allowed.
And they can just
So-
change the signage.
The current 8 that we could, they could change into a different type. But if they stop for a period of 2 years, they lose their grandfatheredness.
And the property location for the potential McDonald's is a C1, right?
Correct.
I personally don't have a problem with the game of skills language that you're proposing. Anybody here have a comment, care one way or the other? Seeing that, any other comments in the audience? Seeing that, I'll make a motion to adopt the game of skills language. I gotta find the number.
So the zoning amendment, the game of skill, and so the moratorium will be broken into 2 ordinances. The zoning amendment is 1 ordinance.
Say that again?
The zoning amendment, the request to change the code is just 1 amendment. The moratorium, planning commission recommended breaking it into 2.
And we really,
So the actual change to the code, so if you agree with the changes, if you recommend to council that the actual changes of the code, the red words, then as planning commission did, then you can't just move forward with the game of skills. I'm not explaining this well, I can tell.
Well, I thought that was broken up, but I guess not. All right.
The moratorium was.
The moratorium.
The
versus
moratorium is not a
language.
zoning amendment.
it wasn't broken up, it was recommended. Don,
Yeah.
we don't need to have 2 new pieces of legislation. It would be council recommending to split the current moratorium that had its first reading, right? We would amend the current one that has its first reading if we didn't want to pass on the small box, but we did want to pass on the games of skill. So we could do that on Tuesday without new legislation. I think planning commission was seeing the reasoning to quote unquote split it, but they're not gonna bring legislation to split when we already have it. Right?
Well, Matt, when we were talking, did you put that in?
I keep hearing when we were talking about what?
When we were talking, Matt, did we include both
Both are listed in one,
the box and the?
yes, both are listed in the moratorium.
They matched on, there's 2 pieces of legislation, a moratorium titled 1, and then an ordinance 1 to make the changes to the zoning code. So all of this wording is already, we've already had one reading on it from both the moratorium and the legislation.
Correct.
Right.
So instead of bringing two more pieces of legislation to split the moratorium, we would just make recommendation in this committee to approve only the moratorium on games of skill. No, we, on the moratorium on games of skill,
You're right.
and then allow the ordinance stay as it is at this point, go for second reading, and then if there's gonna be discussion on defining the word thrift and so forth, is that you or is that us, Matt? You would bring it back to us?
I would probably request that council amend the ordinance.
We wouldn't need to amend, it's just going through its readings still, we just wouldn't approve the ordinance yet. But you wanted to define the thrift stores. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, and we have it's had its first reading, and I believe I can request to amend some of the language, some of the changes.
So are you gonna bring that to us, or is that gonna go for discussion on your definition, or are you just gonna bring it to council?
I was planning on just bringing it to council.
Go directly to council.
Okay,
So,
so you might have different you're gonna change the ordinance, you're telling us, because we're gonna add the word thrift into it.
per the recommendation of planning commission and probably you guys, I think
Well,
you
yeah,
guys.
and
are-
what you were recommending defining thrift. No,
Yeah,
okay.
but I took it as council, planning commission agreed that we should define that. And so,
Agreed.
I don't know what the mechanism, I guess the mechanism is done. We have a moratorium that includes small box retail and games of skill. It's had one reading. Is there a mechanism to split that into two separate items for council to consider?
Can you just make an amendment, right?
Right.
So we'll just
Just
file
move-
an amendment to that. You can file an amendment while it's going through its readings without starting the process over.
So we don't need to split it, Don, we're gonna bring new legislation.
I think you guys should recommend that we split it, and then we will split it.
Yeah, so council
Yeah, so
make a motion
that way-
to amend the moratorium to be split into two separate.
Language in the ordinances can be changed while they're going through that process.
I'm looking at Matt's recommendation, the reason he brought two pieces of legislation, there would be no reason to bring a moratorium for the small box, because it'll be on its third reading for the next, for the following council meeting in November.
So you're stating that you don't see that much of a time frame difference?
Well, you brought them together for a purpose, because you're trying to get it pushed through the end of the year. So the moratorium was to try to stop it all now, which, okay, let's do that for games of skill. But we're on second reading Tuesday.
Mhm.
So if we split out that legislation, or we amend, when I say legislation, I mean the moratorium, and we remove the small box from it and just pass that, the next meeting will be third reading on the ordinance to make the change,
Correct.
which would include both. So in the meantime, you bring us a definition of thrift, right? So we wouldn't need another moratorium.
I was not going to bring back a definition of thrift.
You lost me. Okay.
I'm taking feedback from planning commission and the planning and zoning committee. And the feedback that I'm receiving is we should have a definition for thrift. So then I'm going to go back and request that the legislation for the zoning amendment include a definition for thrift. Then it'll have a second reading, and the definition of thrift will be there. And I'm going to go back with the feedback and make a request that we amend the language in the moratorium to be split into two items to be considered. So my hope is on Tuesday, council can vote on a moratorium for small box retail, and they can vote on a moratorium for games of skill. But so there's two paths. The zoning amendment it takes about 90 days. The moratorium, hoping to pass that next Tuesday, and that covers the time in between.
But your recommendation still is to pass a moratorium, whether we split them or whatever we do. Your recommendation is for a moratorium on small box and skill gaming.
That's my recommendation, but people on council might feel differently.
And that is also the planning commission's recommendation as well. Even though they want to split it up, that is still their recommendation to.
Yes, planning commission recommended approval
Of a moratorium.
on both, but split them so council has options.
So moved.
I don't think it needs split if we're playing a game. If we're playing a game. I don't want the thing split. Just let it go. This is stupid. I see the urgency for games of skill. And I see having the discussion to make a change to the zoning code through the process for small box. But don't waste Don's time and do two pieces of legislation when he just used the words, and you said it, you want them both passed. So that's.
But I don't make the decision.
But there's no point of splitting it, is what you're telling me.
The point of splitting it is, let's say you're adamantly against small box retail, a moratorium on that.
Mhm.
So you vote no on it. You're also voting no on a moratorium for games of skill, which you're in favor of. By splitting it, you can vote no on a moratorium for small box, and you can vote yes for a moratorium on games of skill. So it's not all or one. It's not all or nothing.
No, or
I
you
think
could
that-
amend what you had.
But either way, your recommendation is for the moratorium
No point
for
of
both.
splitting it. Unless
You,
have
you guys are making a recommendation.
vote.
You can make a
I don't
recommendation.
understand the point of it.
'Cause I don't think you're understanding it.
Well,
That's fine, go
I
ahead.
think,
No,
I think if you split it, it gives you the option.
Yes, it gives council
And I'm not
options.
necessarily arguing against it.
Because I sense, like Holly, some people are in favor of the games of skill moratorium and not the small box.
Well,
So
I would-
that gives options.
I would move that we adopt your recommendation, which is to split the legislation.
Second that motion.
All right. Any other comment? Been moved and seconded.
But
Yes.
do we recommend the moratorium? Are we favorable to including the moratorium, or are we just saying we recommend splitting them and let the chips fall where they may? I guess that's my that.
Couldn't we deal that on the next issue? I mean, if we agree to split them, then we can go back and address each one individually, the way I look at it. Or am I confused?
Yeah, I think you should, I think you should, like, a motion could be, I make a motion to split the moratorium,
Yes.
recommend approval of the small box, or approval of the game of skill
Moratorium.
and recommend denial of the small box. And then you get a second on that. Or you can handle them each individually.
Let's do the first one first, in my estimation,
Okay.
where we were gonna split them up from a definition standpoint.
Okay, so now let's have a motion
So moved.
on a moratorium for games of skill.
All right, I'm in favor.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
So
All those in favor?
Dennis makes a motion
Yeah.
to approve the moratorium for games of skill. Brian seconded. Now you're making a recommendation on having a moratorium just for games of skill.
Right.
And then you'll have a separate motion.
Well, let's not go there yet. Let's do
I
the
know.
first one
I'm
first.
just trying to guide it along.
I understand. We got a motion and a second on the table to split definition of games of skill and thrift box, right?
For a moratorium, yes.
Moratorium, excuse me. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, same sign. that was just splitting the definitions, correct? The two issues. Now we're gonna do moratorium,
Now vote on moratorium
on
small box retail.
small box retail. Brian makes the motion. Mr. Slough seconded.
Yes, sir.
What's the motion?
The motion is a moratorium on thrift stores.
Dollars, small box retail.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Was it affirmative motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm not for that.
And then you'll vote no.
That's right.
All right, the motion is to put a moratorium on small box retail for what, 90 days or whatever that is?
It's 6 months.
6 months, all right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Aye.
3-1. That's passed. The recommendation goes on. All right. Now, the language stuff.
Now,
Game of skills.
we did that already.
Oh, I thought the first was just
No.
to split it.
Game of skills.
I think the split was kind of a part of the first motion,
Yes.
but also the moratorium on the
So
game of
now,
skills.
the second piece of legislation is the actual zoning amendment.
The language stuff.
Yep, the language.
I thought it was fine. Anybody want to make a motion?
Make the motion. Second?
Been moved and seconded that we modify the language as was recommended by planning commission staff. And it's all contained in whatever that is we got here. You know what I'm talking about. Chapter 1135,
Yeah.
right? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
3-1. All right.
Excellent.
Anything else?
That's all the items on the agenda.
I'll be interested to read what we did.
Well, you need a recommendation though for you to define thrift, don't you? Or you don't need that?
I plan on doing that from planning commission's
I didn't know
recommendation.
that they recommended, that's fine, as long as you have your recommendation for it.
Yeah, I'm going to move forward with that.
All right. Anything else to come before this august body?
No,
If not, we will move. to
I'm late for
adjourn.
1 o'clock. So dear Lord.
I wanted to do that all day.
He's been here since 9 and he said that is it.
I'm gonna start coming to these all the time. I get
Did I hear you?
I like that's pretty good. I like that. I need to take that over there for BZA tonight.
I don't know.
Oh man, I feel like I traveled down to Cincinnati.
I'm independent. Mhm. I do healthcare stuff.
All right, Jake, have fun. Look in your spam mail for
I sure
the site
did
plan.
5 years ago, Jim.
Oh, jeez. Holly, I traffic jam. Boy, respect of you.
I'm in trouble now.
No, you cannot get health insurance or life insurance.
Oh, is he that?
That is.
Depending on carriers, it could be 72 to 70.
I'm 70.
Yeah, you're sure.
Destroying my life. Daily, that's how I'm short.
Jacob.
Have a good one, sir.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See
Have a
ya.
good one, Holly.
We didn't sign anything.
Thank you, team.
Were we supposed to sign the recommendations for committee reports?
Where is it? Where is it? I didn't fill anything out.
I don't have anything.
So you didn't get the committee report forms?
I don't have a committee report. I guess I have to go upstairs.
Yeah, so then we'll need to sign them before the next meeting. Because you'll have a committee report